Every Hollywood star has a private side that the cameras never show. Behind the glittering lights, many famous faces live lives full of secrets, struggles, and small acts of kindness that rarely make it to the headlines. In 1958, while filming the legendary Western Rio Bravo, a young actress named Angie Dickinson saw something that changed her forever. At that time, Angie was still trying to make her mark in Hollywood, while a teenage singing star named Ricky Nelson was already a household name. Most people only saw Ricky as a heartthrob, the handsome boy who sang hit songs and drove teenage girls wild. But Angie discovered another side of him, a quiet, kind, and deeply humble young man who behaved very differently from the image people saw on stage. For more than 60 years, Angie kept those memories private. But when she finally shared the truth, what she revealed about Ricky surprised everyone. It wasn't a scandal or a dark secret. It was something simple, yet deeply powerful. Something that showed who Ricky Nelson truly was beyond the fame and flashing lights. The year was 1958, and the set of Rio Bravo in Old Tucson Studios buzzed with excitement. The film was directed by Howard Hawks, one of the greatest filmmakers of that time, and featured huge stars like John Wayne and Dean Martin. For Angie Dickinson, this was a dream come true, her first big movie, surrounded by legends. But for Ricky Nelson, it was a new beginning. He was already a successful singer, adored by millions, but this was his first major film role. Everyone expected him to act like a spoiled celebrity. After all, many young stars of that era were known for their pride and attitude. But Ricky surprised them all. The moment he stepped on set, instead of acting superior, he walked up to crew members, shook hands, and introduced himself simply as Ricky. No star power, no ego, just a polite young man eager to learn. Angie noticed this right away. She had seen famous actors behave arrogantly before, but Ricky was the complete opposite. He asked questions about lighting, cameras, and sound equipment, showing a genuine curiosity about how movies were made. It was clear to her that Ricky didn't just want to appear in a movie. He wanted to understand every part of creating one. As filming continued, Angie saw more signs that Ricky was different from the typical teenage idol. During breaks, while most stars went to their trailers or talked to agents, Ricky stayed on set. He would sit beside the camera operator or stand near the lighting crew, asking thoughtful questions about their work. He wanted to learn how camera lenses worked, how lighting changed the mood of a scene, and how sound was perfectly balanced. The crew loved him because he treated them as equals. He didn't act like a superstar. He acted like a student, hungry to learn from everyone. Even Howard Hawks, known for being tough on actors, was impressed by Ricky's dedication. Angie realized that this young man, who could have easily relied on his fame, was instead working harder than anyone to prove himself. He was humble, polite, and always ready to listen. That attitude inspired everyone on set. Angie began to see how his presence lifted the spirit of the whole team. His respect for others and his genuine interest in learning turned the set of Rio Bravo into more than just a workplace. It became a place of teamwork and creativity. Hollywood in the 1950s was filled with strong personalities and big egos. Fame often made people forget their manners, but Ricky Nelson was a refreshing exception. Angie noticed that no matter how long the day was, Ricky was never rude or impatient. He arrived early, prepared for every scene, and treated everyone, from the director to the assistants, with equal respect. His humility didn't come across as fake or forced. It was simply who he was. Angie saw how his calm attitude influenced even the most senior stars. John Wayne, famous for his powerful presence, often smiled when Ricky was around. Dean Martin, known for his charm, found in Ricky a quiet yet powerful example of professionalism. Ricky had a way of making everyone feel valued. Angie began to understand that the real secret of his success wasn't his voice or his looks. It was his character. In a world that often celebrated arrogance, Ricky proved that kindness could be just as powerful. Watching him every day taught Angie a lesson she never forgot. That true greatness doesn't shout. It shines quietly through actions. One day, Angie found something surprising, a small handwritten note on her chair. It was from Ricky, thanking her for her great performance in a scene they had filmed the day before. The twist? It wasn't even a scene they shared together. That meant Ricky had gone out of his way to watch her work and recognize her effort. It wasn't for attention or praise. He didn't tell anyone about it. It was simply his way of showing appreciation. Angie later learned that she wasn't the only one. Ricky often left little notes for crew members, thanking them for their hard work. A lighting technician, a sound engineer, even a costume assistant. Everyone received these quiet messages of gratitude. They were small gestures, but they meant the world to those who received them. During long, exhausting days, these notes lifted spirits and reminded people that their work mattered. Ricky also used his music to spread happiness. Sometimes, when tensions were high, he would quietly strum his guitar and sing a soft tune, lightening the mood and bringing smiles back to tired faces. These acts may have seemed simple, but their effect was profound. They made everyone on set feel connected and appreciated. One day, the production faced a major technical problem. Equipment was failing, the weather was changing, and frustration was building among the crew. Many stars might have retreated to their trailers, but Ricky didn't. Instead, he stayed and asked the crew what was going wrong. He wanted to understand the issue, not to fix it, but to learn. His calm curiosity eased the tension. Instead of arguing or complaining, people started working together again. Angie realized that Ricky had a special kind of leadership. Not loud or demanding, but quiet and uplifting. He didn't lead by giving orders. He led by example. His steady, respectful attitude reminded everyone why they were there, to make a great film together. After that day, Angie began noticing a change on set. Crew members helped one another more. Even John Wayne started explaining scenes to younger actors with more patience. Ricky's behavior had created a ripple effect of teamwork and respect. It showed Angie that true leadership doesn't come from power or fame. It comes from compassion, humility, and the willingness to lift others up. As the weeks passed, Angie and Ricky developed a close friendship based on respect and creative trust. There was no romantic tension. It was something deeper. They admired each other's dedication to their craft. During one particularly difficult scene, the emotions just weren't clicking. Instead of focusing on himself, Ricky took Angie aside and talked about what their characters were really feeling. They discussed the story, emotions, and motivations behind the lines for almost 20 minutes. That conversation transformed the next take. It became real, alive, and powerful. The director was thrilled, and Angie was moved by how selfless Ricky had been. He didn't try to outshine her or take credit. He just wanted the scene to feel genuine. After that, they worked together easily, often communicating through subtle looks or gestures. They encouraged one another and shared honest feedback. Ricky also learned from the greats. John Wayne taught him how to show authority on screen without overacting, while Dean Martin helped him find rhythm in his dialogue. Ricky's eagerness to learn impressed everyone, and his humility inspired even the most experienced actors. When filming ended, Angie realized that Ricky Nelson had given her one of the greatest lessons of her career. He showed her that professionalism isn't about being famous or powerful. It's about respecting everyone you work with. His example stayed with her long after Rio Bravo. Throughout her later projects, like Point Blank and the TV show Policewoman, Angie made a point to treat every crew member as an important part of the production. She learned their names, asked about their families, and made sure they knew their work was appreciated. It was her way of honoring Ricky's influence. For Angie, success was no longer just about fame or awards. It was about building an environment where everyone felt valued and motivated to do their best. Ricky's quiet example had shown her that kindness could change not just a film set, but an entire career. Even decades later, Angie often spoke about how that young 18-year-old singer taught her what true professionalism looked like, and how his gentle nature made a lasting mark on everyone who met him. When people think of Ricky Nelson today, they often remember the charming teenager from The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, or his hit songs that topped the charts. But behind that image was a thoughtful, serious young man who cared deeply about others. Angie Dickinson's memories reveal a side of Ricky that the public rarely saw. Not the performer, but the person. He didn't chase fame. He valued integrity. He didn't seek attention. He gave it to others. In an industry often driven by ego, Ricky's humility stood out as something extraordinary. As Angie learned more about Ricky Nelson during the filming of Rio Bravo, she began to see how much pressure he was living under. To the public, he seemed like a perfect young man, handsome, talented, and confident. But behind that smile, there was a quiet struggle. Ricky often felt the weight of expectations from both Hollywood and the music industry. He was constantly told what to wear, how to sing, and how to behave to keep his image clean. Yet on the Rio Bravo set, he found freedom. For once, he wasn't just Ricky Nelson, the teen idol. He was a student of film, an artist who wanted to learn. Angie recalled that sometimes, after long days, Ricky would sit under the Arizona sky with his guitar, softly playing and humming to himself. Those peaceful moments were his escape. Angie saw that music wasn't just his job. It was his soul speaking. Watching him, she understood how important it was for artists to hold on to something pure and personal amid fame's constant noise. That understanding stayed with her throughout her life. Ricky's humility and kindness might seem natural, but they came from experience. He had grown up in front of America's eyes on The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, one of the most popular TV shows of its time. His parents, Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, were both entertainers who worked hard to maintain their family's image as perfect and wholesome. But living inside that image wasn't easy. Every mistake, every small rebellion, was magnified under the public eye. Angie realized that Ricky had learned to stay calm and respectful, not because his life was easy, but because he had seen how easily fame could take control. Instead of fighting against it, he found balance through discipline and kindness. That was his way of protecting himself. He didn't build walls or act out. He stayed humble and learned from others. Angie admired that deeply. She often said that Ricky had a quiet strength, a kind of peace that came from knowing exactly who he was, no matter what others expected him to be. After Rio Bravo, Angie and Ricky went their separate ways professionally, but the lessons she learned from him never left her. Whenever she worked on a new project, she tried to bring the same atmosphere Ricky had created on that set, one of respect, teamwork, and encouragement. Years later, when Angie became a major television star and policewoman, she found herself leading large teams of actors and crew. She remembered how Ricky made everyone feel important, and she did the same. She wrote thank you cards to her team, shared credit publicly, and built an environment where people wanted to give their best. In interviews, Angie often said that those small actions from Ricky in 1958 shaped her entire understanding of what leadership meant. It wasn't about being the loudest or most powerful. It was about setting a tone that inspired others. Ricky had shown her that kindness isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. She carried that lesson through decades of success and challenge, always remembering the boy who taught her through his actions rather than his words. For Ricky Nelson, Rio Bravo marked a turning point in his life. The film was a success, and critics praised his natural performance. But instead of chasing more movie roles, Ricky returned to music, where his heart truly belonged. His songs continued to top the charts through the early 1960s, including timeless hits like Travelin' Man and Hello Mary Lou. Yet, as the years passed, the music industry changed. Rock music evolved, and younger stars began taking over the spotlight. Ricky, once a teen idol, now faced the challenge of reinventing himself as an adult artist. Angie followed his career with admiration. She saw how he handled disappointment with the same calm dignity he had shown on the Rio Bravo set. He never lashed out or blamed others. He simply kept creating music that meant something to him. That consistency, that quiet resilience, reminded Angie of the boy she had once known on a dusty movie set. Steady, polite, and driven by purpose rather than pride. Ricky never lost his center, even when the world moved on. As Ricky grew older, his songs reflected a deeper, more personal side of him. He wrote about love, loss, and the pressures of fame. In his later performances, you could feel the emotion in his voice, the honesty of a man who had lived through both glory and heartache. Angie once said that when she listened to Ricky sing in those later years, she could still hear the same sincerity that had touched her decades before. He was still the same person, gentle, thoughtful, and grounded. Even when trends changed and audiences became smaller, Ricky continued to tour and play for his loyal fans. He didn't chase fame anymore. He played because he loved it. That dedication touched people. Many who attended his concerts said he treated every performance like it was special, no matter the size of the crowd. For Angie, that was proof that Ricky's secret life, the side of him that valued people over publicity, never faded. It remained his guiding light until the end. In 1985, tragedy struck when Ricky Nelson died in a plane crash at the age of 45. The news devastated fans and shocked Hollywood. For many, it was the loss of a beloved entertainer who had grown up alongside them. But for Angie Dickinson, it was personal. She lost a friend who had once taught her the meaning of grace under pressure. When reporters asked her about Ricky, Angie didn't talk about fame or records. Instead, she spoke about his kindness. She remembered his handwritten notes, his calm voice, and his ability to bring people together. Angie said that Ricky's legacy wasn't just his music. It was the way he made others feel seen and appreciated. His passing reminded her that life's real value isn't measured by fame or success, but by how you treat people. Even in death, Ricky continued to teach her something profound: that kindness leaves an impact far beyond a person's lifetime. As Angie grew older, she found herself reflecting on the people who had influenced her career. She had worked with legends like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and John Wayne. But when asked who left the deepest impression, she always mentioned Ricky Nelson. It wasn't because of his fame, but because of his character. She often told interviewers that the biggest stars were not the ones who demanded attention, but the ones who gave it. Ricky was one of those rare people who made others feel important just by listening. In a business built on competition, he brought empathy. Angie said that what